Challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, Russia's war with Ukraine, and tensions with China have advocates pushing for Canada to consider reshoring, bringing more manufacturing jobs back to Canada and reducing dependence on risky countries. This comes as Canadians continue to deal with inflation and rising interest rates, making daily necessities tough to keep up with. Well, joining us now to give us his thoughts on reshoring and how it could impact Canadians is Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Ltd. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thank you, Nima. Good to be here.
So today we're talking about deglobalization or reshoring. So what exactly does this mean for our economy and the global economy, Brendan?
Nobody knows exactly what it means, Nima, but what it seems to be meaning right now is that for the last, through my entire adulthood, which has been longer than I care to remember, and longer than even than that, the world has become more and more interdependent as manufacturing was outsourced to countries that were developing and enabled that development. China in particular, where from the time I was born to the present, China went from a highly agricultural country to one where it's the workshop of the world. That process, as a result of international tensions and unfortunately exacerbated by the COVID-19 situation, has begun to unravel as countries have begun to look to their own resources or smaller trading partnerships or groups to get what they need. And it's caused a number of things like the inflation spike that we've talked about in the last month or so.
And what would reshoring mean for companies who may already be manufacturing products in countries like China?
Well, the poster child for that right now is Apple, of course. They've got this sprawling campus, Foxconn, I think is their subcontractor, in a city called Zhengzhou. I pronounced it horribly, but they've got this worker, to say unrest is an understatement. They've got thousands of workers locked in a factory that they can't escape because of COVID concerns and are there manufacturing Apple iPhones, or at least supposed to be, and there's been full-on riots. They say that it'll maybe cost 5% or 10% in Apple sales. Really, for the world that is so conscious of ESG, I don't know how anybody buys an Apple product for the foreseeable future. Now, I say that as a diehard BlackBerry user, but still, when basically slave labor is being used to manufacture your product and it's on the nightly news and nothing really gets out of China to that extent, unless it's got so big that they can't contain it, I don't know how you in good conscience buy an Apple product. So as the poster child for this kind of situation, I think it's really going to drive increased manufacturing, onshoring back to more friendly jurisdictions.
Some important points to consider there. Now, with new moves comes new risks, Brendan. So what are some of the challenges and uncertainties to consider here?
Well, having spent half a century sending all our production elsewhere, and not to put too fine a point on exporting a lot of our pollution. I mean, Toronto, where I live, used to make a lot of things, from the Inglis washing machine plant to all kinds of manufacturing. Now we don't do very much. Now, the nice thing is Lake Ontario is really clean, but we've actually exported our pollution. So bring all that production back home. How do you do it in an environmentally acceptable way? Also with jobs, yes, manufacturing back in North America is going to mean more jobs, but to keep costs lower, there's going to be a real push on to roboticize, automate, and I think if you're a young person looking for a career, figuring out how to make automation work more effectively will probably be a really great career for the foreseeable future. So in as much as, say, COVID-19 has accelerated this technology we're using now, this Zoom and video conferencing and other communications, I think this reshoring is going to really accelerate the field of robotics and automation.
All right, Brendan, we've got a quick 45 seconds left here, but what are you keeping your eyes on in terms of reshoring in Canada?
I think I'll answer a bigger question, Nima, and that is, for 50 years, we cared more and more about other countries for economic reasons. We cared about the development, we cared about including them in the global community, we cared about each other politically because we were doing business together. And so my biggest single concern as countries refocus on themselves, is that I don't think that is going to be a recipe for the international cooperation that has been really the hallmark of my half century lifetime. We've seen more and more cooperation until the last few years, where now we're seeing less and less. I see that as a real problem, and that's the thing I'm most concerned about going forward.